Have you ever seen a Linux screenshot? Maybe on Reddit, maybe on Discord, maybe while looking at someone's desktop setup. Chances are you've already seen this little program. This is Fastfetch, one of the most recognizable tools in Linux customization culture. But why does almost everyone use it? Where did it come from? And why did it replace another legendary Linux program? Fastfetch is a command line tool that displays information about your system in a nice looking format. It can show things like your operating system, kernel version, CPU, GPU, memory usage, desktop environment, and much more. It was published in February 18, 2021, with an initial commit that already laid out the core structure of the program. At first, Fastfetch was simply created as a faster alternative to Neofetch, but over time, something unexpected happened. It didn't just become another option, it became the tool that replaced it. And when I say faster, I mean literally. Unlike Neofetch, which was essentially a bash script, Fastfetch is almost entirely written in C. It was created by Linus D. Reimer, a German computer science student at Karlsruher Institute of Technology. I probably butchered your name, sorry about that. Linus also made some other projects, like Mailspring, an email client, and a small game called Block Bounce, but none of them reached the same level of popularity as his most famous project, Fastfetch. To understand why Fastfetch became so popular, we first need to talk about the program it replaced, Neofetch. For years, Neofetch was probably the most recognizable system information tool in the Linux world. Just like Fastfetch, it displayed information about your system next to a colorful ASCII logo. It was simple, customizable, and most importantly, it looked good. And that last part is actually the reason why this program became so popular. Because let's be honest, most people don't run Fastfetch because they desperately need to know their kernel version. Linux already has command for that. You can run uname-a to see your kernel, ls cpu for your processor, and many other commands to get info about your machine. The difference is that Fastfetch and Neofetch turns that boring information into something personal. Your operating system, your theme, your desktop environment, your hardware. It's basically a little identity card for your computer. Neofetch became popular because it perfectly matched Linux culture. Linux users have always loved customization, whether it's changing desktop environments, tweaking window manager, modifying terminals, or creating a completely unique setup. Neofetch became the perfect way to show all of that in one screenshot. A screenshot with Neofetch was not just saying I use Linux, it was saying this is my Linux. However, there was a problem. Neofetch was not designed to last forever. So, as I've mentioned before, the biggest difference between Neofetch and Fastfetch is how they're built. Neofetch was a bash script. This made it very easy to modify and contribute to, which helped it become so popular. But it also came with limitation. Every time Neofetch needed information, it often had to call other system commands and process their output. This worked, but it was not the fastest approach. As system became more complex and users wanted more customization, the limitations started becoming more noticeable, and eventually, development slowed down. The creator of Neofetch, Dylan Arabs, officially archived the project in 2024. However, active development had already mostly stopped years before. The Linux community still loved Neofetch, but it was clear that something newer was needed. This is where Fastfetch comes in. Fastfetch was created with a similar goal, display system information beautifully. But instead of being a bash script, it was designed as a native program written mainly in C. This gives it several advantages. For example, faster startup time, lower resource usage, more flexibility, and better support for new features. And this is where Fastfetch really started to separate itself from Neofetch. It wasn't just a copy of Neofetch, it was building a modern version of the idea. So, how does Fastfetch actually know all this info about your computer? The answer is pretty simple. It asks Linux. When you run Fastfetch, the program starts, collects information from different parts of your system, formats everything, and displays the final results. For example, your Linux distro can be found in /etc/os release. Your CPU info can be obtained from /proc/CPU info. Memory information comes from /proc/meminfo, and so on. Other information, like your desktop environment, GPU, and display resolution, can be collected using different system APIs. Fastfetch is simply collecting a lot of small pieces of information and presenting them in a way you actually enjoy reading. At the end of the day, Fastfetch is a funny kind of software. It doesn't solve a huge problem, it doesn't make your computer faster, and it doesn't even improve your workflow. And yet, millions of people enjoy using it. Because sometimes software doesn't have to be useful in the traditional sense. Sometimes it exists because it's fun. Fastfetch represents a lot of what people love about Linux. The ability to understand your system, customize it, and make it feel like your own. If you watch the video up to this point, consider giving it a like, and maybe comment your opinion down below. It will matter a lot to me. This is all for today. Margaret, out.